Week 14, part 3 of R511, Instructional Technology Foundations. We just had a foundational moment in here with Gina Anderson, who was an alum of our program back when she was Gina Dysant. Before she got married, she entered into the program, became Gina Anderson, and started Luma Writer Learning with her husband. And so we found out what's going on in the real world of motivating employees and motivating customers and stakeholders. And Gina utilizes a lot of different motivational approaches, as we just saw. Some of them are very extrinsic, some very, very intrinsic. Before we go back to part 2 on motivation, I will make a little announcement that this Friday is our last guest. A good friend of mine, Jessie Yee, out in the UK, living near Stonehenge. She's the vice president of Box. And I'm not sure if I will lecture after that, if I'll have anything left to talk about. But I could talk about connectivism, but I think, and if I do, if I don't, that will be week 15 in effect this Friday. So I do not think we'll meet next Monday. I think this is the last Monday because Jessie couldn't meet on next Monday. She asked to meet this Friday. So that's how we roll with this. We kind of play it spontaneous. Our last 4 guests were not in the syllabus. I think the first 3 have been really good. I expect Jessie will be more the same. She has been a guest in this class at least once and maybe twice. She was in the IST program 25 years ago and has learned a lot at Motorola and Vodafone and Genesis and other companies, and now Box. And she's moved up the totem pole to vice president of customer service maybe, or something else. So you never know where people can land a job with an IST-like background. We've seen some variety in here. It's not just doing instructional design work for a higher education institution or something else. It's quite a diversity of placements of our students. So I will go back to screen sharing and see if I can effectively call this up. Christian, do you see that?
Affirmative, I do.
Okay. So Weiner's research from 4 decades ago, and even before that, about attributions of our successes and failures and how they're indicative of our motivational state and our ability to persist beyond one testing situation, be able to, to try it again, to relearn and upskill and reskill, even when we have been told repeatedly that we are incorrect, that we are on the wrong path, that we haven't succeeded. And here are the different attributions that one might make to scoring high or low, in this case, scoring low on a quiz in whatever. It could be from Luma Writer Learning Quiz or my class. A student might say, I did not study the right things. I'm just not feeling up to par today. I am not a good student anyways. It's my roommate's fault since she kept me out late last night. And Jennifer's smiling because we've all used that excuse before. But you look at number 3. I am not a good student anyways. I want to be cognizant of time, so I can go till 9 o'clock here Eastern. So I'm not, I'm not a good student. That's stable. So if you put that excuse out there, then when you don't perform well, you tend not to try it again. Whereas if you said I did not study the right thing, well, then you have some control if you can study the right thing. If you just not feeling up to par today, well, maybe tomorrow you'll feel better. But that's a chance thing. It's maybe uncontrollable, because unless you not up to par because you're out late with Jennifer's roommates. So yeah, I studied really hard. That's why I was successful. Again, that's controllable. That's something that is not stable. It's controllable, and it changes. Today was just my lucky day. Well, That's uncontrollable. And if you're just lucky at something and scored high once, I said this once about an undergraduate statistics class. I got a perfect score on it. I told someone, I just got lucky today. I guessed right. Well, if you guess right, you're more than likely to give up because you were successful once. You don't want to chance it by trying it again and maybe getting it wrong. So try not to attribute successes to luck. Try not attributing failures to ability. Okay. The teacher really likes me. Well, that's unstable, because next semester the teacher might not like you. And for on and on, for every semester you're in after this time. I'm generally a good student. Success, well, yeah, okay. That's something that's stable. And that's, it's something that will be affirmation, that part of your self-confidence, part of your self-confidence and self-esteem. That was an easy test. Well, if Christian scores good on the quiz because it's easy, again, it might be unstable. He can't control it. So he's happy with his high test score and he moves on to something else. So there are three dimensions: stability versus instability, controllability versus uncontrollability, and internal versus external, according to Weiner's research. So it's no longer just an internal external thing, as in part one that we talked about. Now there's aspects of motivation that are stability and controllability. So when we look at some of these things, internal factors are ability, effort, and mood. Those are within us, part of us. External things are the mood of the instructor, what's their situation like, or instructors, you might have more than one, or of your peers that might be grading your work or giving you feedback. Other aspects that are external is the tasks that we're giving, the activities that we're engaging in, the tests that we have. Some might be hard, some quizzes might be hard, some might be easy. Some assignments might be difficult, tasks 6 might be hard, and task 3 might be easy. Also, help from other people are external kinds of things. And ChatGPT is an external kind of thing, okay? So there's those things that are within us. Now, what happens when we have a chip implanted in our brain or in our skin? Is that no longer is ChatGPT, if it's embedded in a chip in our skin, is that external or internal? Well, I'm not sure we have the answer to that. Stability relates to how changeable a factor is over time. Is it something that's always going to occur, or is the next quiz, going to be really, really, really hard after having the really easy one? So it might not all be easy ones. Dr. Bonk might give an easy one in the first quiz, so the students think he's easy. Then he slams them the next 14 weeks. Ability relates tends to be stable, whereas mood and luck tend to be unstable. So you notice the word "tend" in there. Ability of actually, is changeable. Intelligence is malleable. We're not given a fixed set of intelligence, but it's something we can always work on to improve all skills and so forth. Controllability refers to the degree which the individual has control over the causes of the failures and the causes of successes that one engages in, or one experiences, I should say. So controllable, how stable is it, right? How internal ability, external stability, ability, and controllability. So here we've got, Shoying might say, I don't study the right things. Well, Shoying, that's an internal thing. It's unstable and you can control it. It's you, it's internal, not somebody external. It's unstable. Sometimes you might study the right things, sometimes you don't. And it's controllable, the time and effort that you expend. So that's to understand that anyhow. Whereas Christian might say, I force myself to slow down and think. Well, again, it's internal, it's something inside himself. It's unstable because sometimes he goes totally wacko fast, and so other times he's slowing down, and it's something controllable. It's very similar to the previous one, okay? Whereas Jennifer might say, I am not a good student. Again, it's internal. That's a stable component, something she might not easily rectify. but it is something that you can work at, and it's uncontrollable. If that's having a fixed mindset. So it goes back to Carol Dweck. We have a fixed mindset of our intelligence or a growth mindset. If we say that we're not a good student, we're tending with a fixed mindset. And again, it goes back to motivation, which I talked about earlier. The course is hard. Course is hard. That's an external thing. It's not within yourself. That's outside your body. Think about outside and inside the skin somewhere. And it's a stable thing. Dr. Bonk's, what course of mine is hard? My Saturday class
Saturday
is
course.
The Saturday course? No, that's an easy course.
Maybe creativity for some people.
No, it'd be an easy course. But maybe the monster syllabus. That course is hard. 100-page syllabus,
Ooh.
right? Ooh.
Yep. And growing.
And growing. Maybe dissertation prep too, because students get too worried on dissertations. It's stable. Once you say it's hard, right? Then it's never going to let up, and it's uncontrollable. It's outside your capable. You don't control it. The instructor controls it. That task was an easy task. It's external. It's not within yourself. It's unstable because some tasks might be hard, some might be medium, and it's uncontrollable. So we get at that Weiner's research here. So in terms of attributions for our successes and failures and our motivations. So if it's external, it's stable, and it's uncontrollable, and you've not done well, it's a really hard course and you don't do well in the first 2 quizzes in biology, you might give up on becoming a medical school student like my daughter did after she took biology at Butler. That was the one class she didn't do well in. Those screener courses, those intro courses that determined pass fail or whether one enters into that discipline for one's career. They're really hard courses. Many of our students think that R511 or Y502 is a really hard course. It's statistics, and they're not good with math. So they'll say, that course is hard. Well, it's external, stable, and uncontrollable. It's never going to change. You either have to learn statistics or you don't. So they give up on majoring in IST because they have to take Y502. It's a really hard course. You see where this falls in to one's decision making. I've got 10 minutes left here. John Keller, a book by Marcy Driscoll, which I use in P540, talks about a motivation model called the ARCS model. And many students over time have used the ARCS model in their dissertation. There are 4 components of the ARCS model, and Gina mentioned the first one tonight, attention. She used the little, what was the little guy's name? The little, did you write it down?
Nugget.
Nugget and brush. Nugget and brush. And there was a Nugget, there's one that rhymed with nugget, I thought, but yeah, they used that cartoon character to gain attention. And then they create cases or scenarios or problems that are relevant to truck drivers. And they have them be successful. And the more successful it is, you gain confidence in yourself, in your skills. And then you become satisfied with the course that you took. So it's the ARCS model: attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction. Per Marcy Driscoll, there are strategies for stimulating motivation per the ARCS model. Again, you build and sustain motivation, you enhance relevance, you build confidence and generate satisfaction, like the kitty cat walking in front of the German Shepherd dogs. So how do you motivate according to Marcy Driscoll? Well, there are dozens, there's a dozen ways listed, but there are dozens and dozens of ways. There's hundreds of ways to motivate. These are just some that are listed there. Provide opportunities, number 5, provide opportunities for some self-directed learning and self-study, right? That's one possible way. Have positive expectations of your students, setting clear goals for them and possible outcomes that are achievable. Praising them, rewarding them, giving positive feedback, a behavioral principle, Skinnerian principle, very important. Having unusual things, like we had 4 people that weren't planned for this course for the end of this semester. some novelty, some unexpected things. I wasn't expecting Gina Anderson to be a guest until last week when I chatted with her. It was last Monday. And all of a sudden she's a guest in here. So, some little bit of mystery, little novelty, little suspense, right? We all need that novelty or we get bored, right? And so, you never know who the magician's going to be, or the magician might pull out of a hat. So I have a magician's outfit I sometimes wear to my classes, and we bring in someone different, building on prior knowledge, building on what people know, because there's safe harbor in what people know, and you're bootstrapping them with some base knowledge, and then building on that over time. It's really connecting to Piaget. You're building on what people already know. And then relating instruction to their personal goals. Find out what the students' goals and expectations are, and then pointing out where you're going to meet those goals and expectations. And then vary your instructional situation and working with your students, so you're not presenting one set way. So you notice today I have a little piece before the guest, a little piece after. I varied instead of everything after or everything before. So I want to wrap up for the last 7 minutes and talk about self-regulated learning and self-directed learning. But before I do that, does anyone have a question about any of these motivational principles or about what I talked about so far? Okay. I'm happy to report that I'm holding up, despite having been so exhausted yesterday. I didn't think I'd be alive. I didn't think I'd be able to make it this far, but I have, and I'm fine. So self-regulated learning. I could say to all of you and all the students watching the video recording later, put away your pen and paper and study for a quiz that we're going to have today that I'm going to give you in 7 minutes. I'll give you 7 minutes of study. Okay. So instead of doing this particular activity, I want you to take a minute, and in the chat window, I want you to type in how you would study for 7 or 8 minutes for a quiz. If you walked into class and the instructor says he's giving you an exam or a quiz, and it's a surprise quiz, and he's going to give you 7 or 8 minutes of study, what would you do? I want you to type that in the chat window. What would you do? And I'll read these off here. I'll stop the recording. What would you do? I'll tell you what I would do. But Jennifer's got looking back at her notes and predicting questions. Christian's going to do self-meditation and breathe and hope osmosis works, and outline the topic. He's going to hope that some kind of powerful energy enters his brain. I would look for the text signals. And so I would look for the text signals in the chapter, which means the bolded text, the underlined text, or any questions embedded in the text, any questions at the end of the chapter, and then I work backwards from that. So I'd be looking at concepts and terms, or concept maps. Some books have a concept map to start the book off. Anything else here besides heavy breathing and panting and heart attack and all that, panic attacks, meditation. Christian's going to rely on meditation. Good food. Go get some ice cream. Go get some food. All right, let's look at what some of the things that you could do. Let's see. Well, hang on a second. I got to share my screen again. Okay. So I once did this to my students, and there actually is research on this. There are ed psych professors who did this to their students, and they studied what the students did, actually. I once said, we're going to have chapters 3, 4, and 9 in the Marcy Driscoll book. And so what were some of the things that my students did? And these 3 chapters had a chapter on cognitive theory, schema theory, and motivation and self-regulation. So they were connected. They're actually pretty similar, even though chapter 9 came a long ways after chapter 4. So we're studying dual coding theory, schema theory, use of prior knowledge, self-regulation, metacognition. What techniques do you think that they use? Well, some reread their lecture notes. Some rewrote their lecture notes as quickly as they could. Some wrote a summary of the previous lecture. Some, one thing you could, one thing you could do is pretend that you're talking to someone else, explain the content to them, or explain it to a peer, actually talk to them. Some make up their own questions and answer their own questions, even those that are not in the book. Okay. So in some studies, they're done outside of class, formalistic class. So they ask a friend or family member for help. Some think of metaphors or analogies or personal examples that might help you. Some create concept maps and associate one idea with another to create a concept map, mind map of some kind. So what was interesting in the study, in the original study, some people, a large percentage, I want to say 40 or 50% of the people, you know what the number one answer was? Go back to page 1 and begin reading at page 1. So yeah, they didn't have good metacognitive skills, self-monitoring, and evaluation, planning. You want to get people thinking about their thinking. And aspects of metacognition include meta-monitoring of your progress, meta-monitoring how well you're learning the content, evaluating, writing an evaluation, checking and self-checking through self-testing, and then reviewing and summarizing your content that you've learned, and then planning next steps. These are all metacognitive skills. And then there are strategies and tactics. Generals engage in overarching tactics, and the foot soldiers engage, they have the overarching strategy, and the foot soldier does the tactic. So we have elaboration, rehearsal, organization. These are big things. These are general strategies out there, using imagery, using mnemonics, using mind maps, using comprehension monitoring, using positive self-talk. These are all big things, right? These are all important though. Organization and elaboration are probably the two most powerful in the list. And so elaboration might be using an image, might be creating a mnemonic cue, might be note-taking, might be highlighting, and rehearsal might be underlining, summarizing, repeating, and so forth. Organizing might be mind mapping, grouping, outlining, mnemonics. Imagery, you're creating, a story out of it. You're creating links to other things. Comprehension monitoring, you might subject yourself to sets of questions from lower order thinking to higher order thinking, rereading the passage for what you didn't pick up the first time, self-checking for inconsistencies and so forth. Affective statements that might make creating positive self-affect, like you can do good, you've done well before, you can do better if you plan harder, if you plan ahead, remind yourself of the ultimate goal or the task and so forth. So you can create a positive and safe learning environment, if you will. So when we look at cognitive theory, we look at cognitive strategy, some things relate to elaboration, some are rehearsal, some are using images, some are for comprehension monitoring and self-questioning and paraphrasing, some are for affect, and some focus attention. I got 1 minute left. So some things are at the tactical level, using concept maps, looking for text signals. That's the number one I said, look at the text signals. Self-questioning and writing notes. I think Jennifer said she'd write her notes, or Christian said he'd write his notes. I think Xiaoying said she'd look at the headline. No, I think Xiaoying said look at the highlighted text. So in the text signals, you might have bolded words, you might have headings and subheadings and color and contrast and italics and all that. Some people might use individual tactics to study, like restatements and predicting what's coming next and so forth. I've already talked about metacognition is, so metacognition is both declarative knowledge about your own thinking processes, and then procedural knowledge, being able to enact a particular strategy when you need it to happen, procedural knowledge. Metacognition could include writing on your hands, that, what you normally would skip and which you don't do. Yeah, I don't know. Sitting in front of the class or grabbing a cup of coffee before class in order to help pay attention. I don't know if that's really metacognition, but okay. Reserving judgment until you can reflect on what you have perceived. Oh, okay. Writing milk on your hand so you don't forget to pick up milk on the way home. Okay. There actually is a test to get at students' learning and strategies, learning and study skills strategy. It's called the LASSI, Learning and Study Skills Inventory, and it has different components to the LASSI, including selecting main ideas. And so there are a set of questions that one would be asked, and you look at the responses on the scales. One subscale is on motivation. One is on time management, one is on study aids, one's on self-testing and so forth. And so we get at whether a strategy is very typical of yourself or not so typical. And you take these questions like, I worry that I'll flunk out of school. I find it hard to stick to a schedule. After class, I review my notes. I don't care if I finish school as long as I get a husband or a wife. I use study skill aids and helps such as italics to help me learn. And some of these things are useful and some of these things are not. Number 4 would not be such a good thing. Number 2 would not. Number 1 would not. Number 3, yes. Number 5, yes. Even when I feel well prepared, I feel anxious. When it comes to studying, procrastination is a problem for me. That'd be problematic. I come to class unprepared. Those are all problematic. I would rather not be in school. I only study subjects I like and so forth. So they have 10 subscales in the LASSI, and they use it at the University of Austin, Texas at Austin. And if you score below 70% on it, they make you take a study skill class because they find that freshmen don't come in with good study skills at Austin, at all major colleges actually. And this test was developed by Claire Weinstein, a famous educational psychologist at UT Austin. Don't know if she's still working now. Another test that many IST students use is called the Motivated Strategies for Learning Questionnaire. It was built by Paul Printrich at the University of Michigan. He died of a stroke at a very young age, I think riding his bicycle, if I'm not mistaken. I met him once at APA, American Psych Association, back in 1994, I think, before he died. And his scale is a 1 to 7, and many people adapted this for online environments. So 1 is not true of you, 7 is very true of you. So questions like, I prefer classwork that is challenging so I can learn new things. Compared to other students in this class, I expect to do well. I am so nervous during a test, I cannot remember the facts. The nice thing about the MSLQ, it's free, it's open access. And people have modified it again for online and blended environments. So it's not just face-to-face anymore. And it combines motivation and self-regulated learning or instructional, should I say, metacognition and motivation in one scale. It's important for me to learn what is being taught in this class, 1 to 7. I like what I'm learning in this class. Hopefully Xiaoying says, yes, I like what I'm learning in 511. Okay. Number 6, I'm certain I can understand ideas taught in this class. And they go on. I'm able to use what I learn. I expect to do well. Jennifer says, I expect to do well. Compared to others in this class, I think I'm a good student, okay? And they have more. When I take a test, I think about how poorly I'm doing. Even when studying dull and uninteresting things, I try to finish. When reading, I try to connect things and so forth. So those are some examples of strategies. Then there's Index of Reading Awareness developed by Scott Paris, and then the Index of Writing Awareness developed by myself. And in these instruments, the Index of Reading or Writing Awareness, we have multiple choice questions and have people say, what's the hardest part about reading for you? What's the hardest part about writing for you? You get 2 points for saying organizing the paper in a theme, 1 point for saying using complex words and sentences, and 0 points, there's never anything hard for me. And so I developed this scale to get at one's metacognition in writing. What would help you become a better writer? If more people would help you write, that's 1 point. 2 points, making sure that others will understand what you write. 0 points, writing papers with shorter words and phrases. You see, If a teacher gave you a hard topic to write about, what should you do? Number two, ask yourself questions about what you know and don't know. 1 point, try to tell at least some main ideas, some basic. 0 point, write about an easier topic. So you start, why do you go back and rewrite and recopy things over again? Because other possible readers might not understand it. 2 points, right? Spelling and grammar, 1 point. It's good practice, 0 points. So yeah, we have these kinds of questions. Finally, people like Barry Zimmerman and Martinez, and Zimmerman worked with Bandura. So he developed a couple scales that got people to reflect by giving them situations and asking them how they would solve it. Assume your teacher's discussing civil rights movement. You'll be tested on the topic. Do you have a method that will help you learn and remember the information? Basically, they're trying to get at what strategies the students have to learn the material. Give them a case situation, or it's also called the tell a friend something. When taking a test in school, do you have a particular method that you prefer? What if it is difficult? What if it is difficult, a difficult test? What would you do? Not just write in your hand, not cheat, and so forth. Some people find it easier to arrange a place where they study. Do you have a particular place to work? What if you have a problem concentrating? That's Piaget's desk, by the way. That's just so you know. I don't think I could work there. So one that I like is tell a friend. Say you have a tough assignment. What would you tell a friend are ways to study better, ways to do better? So this gets at your strategies, but you're telling your friend about them. You see, it takes kind of the pressure off. You're not testing them, you're asking them to tell a friend, right? So there are multiple choice questions that get at metacognition. There are observational, discussion, and there are interviews. Multiple choice are cheap. There's also the scales. The scales, that's a fifth way, I guess. So yeah, I think I'll stop there. So that's a couple of quick things on motivation and self-directed learning. I went over 20 minutes. It's a half hour, not quite. Do I have a question to end tonight? That's one semester of a course in metacognition in 1 hour, sort of, or motivation and metacognition in 50 minutes.
What has been your most utilized metacognitive technique?
So we've used the MSLQ. I mean, we really have. I've seen it in many studies. There are other scales like it, these scales, the kind of self-assessment scales, because you don't have to rely on someone else. Now, people lie, they're not truthful. So there's limitations to self-assessment kinds of things. But I've not utilized my index of writing awareness all that much. I'm not a writing researcher anymore. So, so multiple choice, no. Observation, no. Interview, yes, somewhat. Mostly it's self-ratings. Most of what we do. Also, just look at keystrokes, mapping keystrokes. Some people use eye movement data. That'd be very boring and monotonous for me, but some people use eye movement data to get at metacognitive because you get look-back strategies. And that's an indicator of metacognition. You look at focus and gaze and all that stuff. Those are people doing reading research. There's a whole slew of research in that area. I did keystroke analysis for my dissertation. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, except for maybe one study or two studies, but not for their life. So that's why we use these instruments that are easy to collect and easy to score. Yep. What about
your personal metacognitive skills? Like, what do you use for metacognition?
I think when I was a college student, I'd say it's my note taking. because I was a terrible writer and I had to really read carefully to read my notes and interpret them. So I would say definitely that's one aspect. Note to sloppy handwriting is a metacognitive skill. As a metacognitive skill. But no, I would say writing notes on the side of text, all over and connecting things, arrows and all sorts of stuff like that, is a good way. I plan things out too as a number one thing. I have things in my pockets. I've, the checklist kinds of things and planning, and I map everything out. I still have a paper planner in my pocket. I have two of them, one from last year, one from this year in my pocket. So I can tell you everything I did the last year and a half now, by day, and what I'm going to do. So that's people love these electronic things, but I look at that. People use Outlook and all that, but that's Big Brother watching over you. Everyone can check my schedule then. I don't want people saying what I'm going to do and determining what I'm going to do at each hour of the day. To me, that's putting us into becoming automatons,
Maybe AI can help you augment your metacognitive skills through that data, though.
I'm sure AI will. I'm sure AI will in many different ways. Keep in mind, I've personally never used EndNote or any of these tools. I just use my brain. Some of these things, if you don't use your brain, you rely on other things, then you're going to lose some of the, some of your cognitive skills, in my humble opinion. I still do some mathematics, but I like calculators. But okay, I'm going to end this recording. That's okay with all of you. This is week 14, part 3, actually. One of the few times we had 3 parts. This will go into a part 1 and part 3 will go into a playlist of my lectures or presentations. We'll have 2 playlists, one playlist of all the guests and one playlist of all my presentations that you will get as a parting gift of this course that I'll make up after this Friday when we talk to Dr. Jesse Yee. Okay, stopping the recording, week 14. See you all. Maybe I'll see 1 or 2 of you on Friday. Maybe.